Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions for UFC 121, and please take note of the brand new Overlay and MMA Stats ticker, bringing you fighter information to help you with your betting picks. Before we get to my predictions, let's quickly recap what happened at UFC 120. My record was 3-1-1, pushing my overall record at 19-12, and I have an 8-3-1 mark over the last two events. The additional one on my 120 record is the result of the draw between Congo and Brown. Seeing as the draws happen fairly infrequently, and I will never predict a fight to end in a draw, as it's not a betting option, I won't include it on my overall record. In the end, I was quite satisfied with the 3 wins, and I hope to continue to build on that success. Moving on, UFC 121 will take place in Anaheim at the Honda Center on October 23rd, 2010. I'll be giving 5 predictions for the main card, along with my picks for the 2 undercards that will be televised live on Spike TV. Finally, my videos, as always, are associated with sportsinteraction.com. Check out the link in the description below for more information. Now let's get to the fights. The first fight of the night takes place in the UFC heavyweight division between 7-1 Ultimate Fighter finalist Brendan the Hybrid Schaub and 11-5 Gabriel the Pau Gonzaga. Before getting to the fight breakdown, the odds currently are not posted for this matchup, but I would think Schaub will enter as a slight underdog, probably in the 240-260 range, while Gonzaga, the veteran, will pay around $1.50 to $1.65. Leading up to this matchup, Gabe Gonzaga has fought under the UFC banner on 11 occasions with a record of 7-4. Now, Pau started his UFC career with 4 straight wins, but more recently has struggled with a record of 3-4, having alternated wins and losses over his last 4 fights. Brendan Schaub will enter the octagon for the 4th time, sporting a 3-1 record in the UFC, having only dropped the 1 fight by knockout to Roy Nelson. My expectation for this fight is a knockout finish, as these 2 fighters have combined for 11 knockout victories in their career. Adding to the possibility of the fight not going the distance is the fact that both fighters have also suffered knockout defeats. While I mentioned Schaub's lone knockout defeat, Gonzaga has matched his KO victory total of 5, with all 5 of his career losses by knockout. Gabe's susceptibility to being knocked out concerns me, as Schaub's stand-up skills have been improving every time he enters the cage. He's earned all 6 of his career wins by knockout, and all 6 came within the first 90 seconds of the opening round. If this fight goes to the mat, there's no question who will hold the edge, as Pau is a BJJ black belt, while Schaub currently ranks as a purple belt. So it will be important for the hybrid to keep the fight standing. In the end, both fighters have the ability to end this fight, but I think that these 2 warriors are headed in opposite directions. For me, confidence in the fight game is huge, and I think that Brendan Schaub will have it in this fight. So my prediction is Brendan the Hybrid Schaub winning his first ever UFC main card fight with a first-round knockout of Gabriel Gonzaga. Our next fight is in the light heavyweight division between a former Ultimate Fighter coach and participant, as Tito Ortiz, 16-7-1, enters the cage to battle 10-2 Matt the Hammer Hamill. The odds are quite interesting for this fight, as the former champion Ortiz is a solid underdog paying $2.25, while Hamill will enter as the favorite at $1.57. One of the contributing factors to the breakdown of these odds is the health factor. Ortiz has a well-documented history of injuries, hasn't fought since late November of 2009, and has only fought once a year since 2007. In that same time period, Matt Hamill has fought 8 times. On top of his injury concerns, Tito has been almost 4 years since his last victory, with 3 losses and 1 draw in that time span. While Matt Hamill has enjoyed a solid run, having won 4 consecutive fights since being stopped by Rich Franklin at UFC 88. Having looked back at past fights for both fighters, Matt Hamill's striking skills have been improving every time he enters the cage, and having scored knockouts in 6 of his 10 wins, he is more than capable on his feet. Looking back at Ortiz's most recent fight against Forrest Griffin, Tito's striking seems slow and telegraphed, not nearly as sharp as what Hamill has shown of late. In the Griffin fight, Tito's biggest weapon was his ability to take Forrest down and punish him with some ground and pound. But as the fight progressed, Ortiz wasn't able to continue his success taking him down and got picked apart on the feet. The concern I have for Tito in this matchup is that he won't be able to score takedowns against Hamill at all, even early in the fight when the Huntington Beach bad boy is fresh. Hamill is a skilled wrestler, and having rewatched his fight against Mark Munoz, who was an NCAA Division I champion, the Hammer is quite proficient at using his wrestling skills to prevent being taken down. I don't think that Hamill will be able to knock out the former champion, but I see him getting the better of Ortiz on the feet, and as the fight progresses, Tito's inability to score takedowns will cause him to slow down and struggle even more in the stand-up. If this fight happened 5 or more years ago, I think I might look at it differently, but it's happening in 2010. So my prediction for this fight is Matt Hamill paying $1.57 to defeat Tito Ortiz by decision. Next up, we move to the UFC welterweight division as Paulo Thiago, 13-2, squares off with Diego Nightmare Sanchez, who currently sits with a record of 23-4. The odds have not yet been posted for this fight, but I think this will be one of the closer fights we have seen over the last few betting cards. Paul Thiago might be a slight favorite in this matchup, probably in the area of $1.70 to $1.80, while Thiago will more than likely be in the range of $1.85 to $2. Breaking the fighters down physically, Paul Thiago will have a slight advantage in the fight, being 1 inch taller and holding a 2.5 inch reach advantage over Sanchez. Thiago's advantages in size are only slight, which is a positive for Sanchez, as 3 of his last 4 losses came at the hands of fighters that were quite a bit bigger than the Nightmare and were able to use that to their advantage. Entering this fight, both combatants are desperate for a victory. Paul Thiago is coming off a decision defeat against Martin Kampmann and has gone 2-2 in his last 4 fights. Even more desperate will be Thiago Sanchez, as he will be looking to avoid a 3rd consecutive defeat. Thiago has dropped back-to-back fights to John Hathaway and BJ Penn, 2 fights that he was clearly outclassed in. He has lost back-to-back fights at one other junction in his career, losing to Josh Koscheck and then John Fitch. Thiago responded by ripping up 4 consecutive wins. Comparing skills, both fighters have had tremendous success in the submission game. Thiago has recorded 8 submission victories, while Thiago has tapped 9 opponents. Paulo Thiago is a BJJ black belt, while Thiago is a brown belt, so the slight edge goes to the Brazilian. In the stand-up game, I think Thiago has a slight advantage, having knocked out 6 opponents, while Thiago has only recorded 2 wins via KO. This fight will come down to 2 key elements: Thiago's aggressive striking and his wrestling. In Thiago's latest fights against Kampmann and Mike Swick, Paulo struggled with the aggressive striking of his opponents. Thiago likes to wing big haymakers, looking at the type of knockout he scored against Josh Koscheck, but this opens him up to be picked apart and overwhelmed by an aggressive, technical striker. Thiago's wrestling will also be important, as the Brazilian has struggled in the past with good wrestlers. He dropped a decision to John Fitch because of Fitch's wrestling skills, and despite picking up the win in the Jacob Volkmann fight, Volkmann was able to use his skills quite effectively in that fight, securing multiple dominant positions on the mat. In his last fight, Sanchez got caught with a big knee and wasn't really able to recover. He will need to avoid a similar start to this fight. If he can keep away from Thiago's big power punches, use his aggressive striking to get the edge in the stand-up, and put the Brazilian on his back using his wrestling, I think Sanchez can pick up the win. So my prediction for this fight is Thiago Sanchez defeat Paulo Thiago by decision. We move now to the co-main event, remaining in the welterweight division for the long-awaited UFC debut of Jake Shields, 25-4-1, as he takes on 17-3 Martin the Hitman Kampmann. For this fight, Shields is the betting favorite, paying $1.35, while Martin Kampmann plays the role of the underdog at $2.95. This is a very dangerous fight for Jake Shields. He enters the UFC with huge expectations. He has his eyes firmly fixated on the title shot against GSP, but if he overlooks his current opponent, his championship aspirations could quickly be derailed. Kampmann has won 4 of his last 5 fights with an 8-2 record in the UFC. In his career, Kampmann has recorded 7 knockouts, 6 submissions, and 3 decision wins. He's a technically sound striker with an underrated ground game. Jake Shields has been on an impressive roll, winning 14 consecutive fights and hasn't lost since 2004. During that run, he's compiled an impressive list of victories over names like Dan Henderson, Jason Miller, Robbie Lawler, Paul Daly, and back in 2006, he defeated Yushin Okami and Carlos Condon on the same night. During his 14-fight winning streak, Shields has fought in the middleweight division, going 4-0 along with a 10-0 record at welterweight. His last 3 wins came at 185, but he'll be dropping back down to the weight class that many feel is a more natural fit. Just like Shields, Kampmann also spent some time at middleweight, so size won't play a role in this fight, as both fighters will stand at 6 feet even, and they will also have an identical reach of 72 inches. There has been rumblings of the winner of this fight putting themselves in line for the next shot of the welterweight gold, which should mean both of these fighters will be at their best. The question is, whose best is better? As talented as Kampmann is, I think that Shields' top game will be the difference in this fight. Prior to Shields' last matchup in Strikeforce against Dan Henderson, I was a skeptic regarding the hype that was being heaped upon him. And it is easy to say that after that fight, my opinion of him changed. Realistically, Shields is a welterweight, and in that fight, he was able to take down and keep down Dan Henderson, who has fought at light heavyweight and who is a former Olympic Greco-Roman wrestler, and he did it for the better part of 5 rounds. For me, that indicates that he should be able to take down and keep down Kampmann. Now, the Dane has demonstrated that he's more than capable of avoiding the takedown, and according to UFC.com, he's been able to successfully defend against 78% of takedown attempts. This stat will surely be put to the test in this fight. In the end, I think that Shields will be able to put Kampmann on the mat and keep him there for 3 rounds. He might even be able to ground and pound his way to a stoppage, but more than likely, I would say a decision win for the UFC newcomer is most likely. So my predictions for this fight is the favorite Jake Shields paying $1.35 to defeat Martin Kampmann in the co-main event of the night. Finally, we move to the main event of the night. It's 5-1. Brock Lesnar will defend his UFC heavyweight championship against undefeated challenger 8-0 Cain Velasquez. As is the case in the majority of championship fights, the title holder is the betting favorite at $1.58, while the challenger pays $2.23. Looking first at the champion, Lesnar has won 4 consecutive fights since dropping his UFC debut, while the undefeated Velasquez has a 6-0 record inside the octagon. Together, these fighters have taken out almost every top-ranked heavyweight the UFC has to offer leading up to this fight. As is the case in a lot of heavyweight fights, one fighter will have a definite size advantage. Brock will have a 25-pound weight advantage, he will be 2 inches taller, and will have a 4-inch reach advantage on Cain. One of the most talked about aspects of this fight is how Velasquez handled Brock's size. Cain's camp says that their fighter will have no issues with the size, as Cain has always had success against larger fighters, while Brock claims that he is one of a kind and Velasquez has never fought anyone like him before. Both fighters were very successful collegiate wrestlers. I would give the edge to Lesnar in that department. But what I do know for sure is that Cain will be the far superior striker in this fight, and this may prove to be a bigger factor than the wrestling. Looking back at the Carwin-Lesnar fight, it wasn't Carwin's size that led him to dominate the champ in the opening round. It was Lesnar's inability to deal with Carwin's striking. Shane smashed Brock with big shots on the feet, and Lesnar simply crumpled and covered up against the cage wall. If Carwin had not have gassed in the second round, I don't think that Brock would have had an answer for Carwin's stand-up skills. I think that Cain will be able to provide just as much of a problem for the champ as Carwin did in the stand-up. The question is, will Velasquez be able to keep the fight standing? If Cain is able to stuff Brock's takedowns, it could be the longest or potentially shortest night of Lesnar's young MMA career. Were these fighters the same size, I would have no hesitation taking Velasquez, but they're not, and it is yet to be seen what impact that will have on the fight. One fight that leads me to believe that Cain will be able to deal with the size issue is the Lesnar-Couture fight. Randy had success dealing with Lesnar in the clinch and against the cage, and if Randy can do it, logic says Velasquez should be able to do it as well. Brock has only been forced beyond the second round once, so it'll be interesting to see what happens to his cardio and subsequently his ability to take Cain down if he isn't able to finish him early. Brock has never really taken big shots, as he blocked a lot of Carwin's strikes with his arms, so you have to wonder about Brock's chin and ability to recover if Cain connects. On the other side of the cage, Cain's cardio isn't in question, and with 7 knockouts, Cain's striking is not in question. I'm really looking forward to this matchup, and I think by the end of the night, Brocktober may come to a premature close. So my prediction for this fight is Cain Velasquez paying $2.23 to defeat Brock Lesnar and become the new UFC heavyweight champion. As promised, here are my predictions for the 2 undercard fights on Spike. First up in the middleweight division, Ryan Jensen takes on Ultimate Fighter winner Court McGee. There are no odds posted, but I think they'll be around $1.60 to $1.30 in favor of McGee. Over his career, Jensen has been susceptible to being submitted, while McGee has 6 career submission wins along with 2 more subs on the Ultimate Fighter. So I'll be taking Court McGee by submission over Ryan Jensen. Next is another middleweight battle between Patrick Cote and Tom Lawler. I would guess that Cote will be the favorite in the area of $1.60 range, while Lawler will be the dog at around $2.40 to $2.50. Both these fighters have dropped 2 in a row, Lawler to Joe Dorkson and Aaron Simpson, Cote to Anderson Silva and Alan Belcher. Looking at the caliber of opponent, I'd say Cote is ahead, so I'll take the Canadian Patrick Cote to defeat Tom Lawler by decision or late stoppage. In summary, I'll be taking underdog Brendan Schaub paying $2.50, Matt Hamill at $1.57, Sanchez another dog at $1.90, Jake Shields paying $1.35, Cain Velasquez to become the new heavyweight champion paying $2.33, and on the undercard, Court McGee at $1.60 and Patrick Cote at $1.60 as well. Your betting price will be around $60, and if you drop down $100 on this fight, you will get a payout of roughly $6,000, which is a gigantic payout. If you sign up at sportsinteraction.com by clicking on the link below and deposit $50 or any amount up to $125, you'll have your deposit matched, so you could easily turn this into a huge payout night with a small deposit. It's free money that you're getting, and people are starting to sign up and see how easy it is to do. As always, please check out lowkick.com for all your MMA news and articles written by me under the name ScottyJ86. Thank you for watching Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions for UFC 121. Good luck this weekend, and I'll see you back here in November.